And this is what value over selling is. A lot of people think of Instagram as just another avenue to just lead generate. You lose a person the second you bring up a call to action really quickly and you try to ask them for something without knowing them.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Contractor Success Academy lesson. Today I'm here with Mr. Tim Roman. Tim, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Tim, before we get into it, do things a little bit differently here. I came across you through a book by Garyvee, Crushing It. I think Crushing It, right? That's the one.
Yep.
I'd love for you, Tim, to just walk us through, because today your presentation, you're going to be talking to us about social media and how it helped you essentially dominate with a brand that you created. I'd love to get a little bit of the backstory before we get into the meat and potatoes of your presentation. You mind just kind of giving us some context? Who are you and what did you do? How did social media help you?
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Yeah. So being featured in a book, what led up to it was I have no background in the kitchen and bath industry. And I somehow ended up working for a gentleman that was very successful with it. And to me, it seemed like a pretty easy business, I guess, to run. It just seemed like A, needs to end up at B, and then you keep the C, and then you just got to keep everyone happy. It wasn't really a hard formula to figure out. I didn't go to college, so I didn't have a path that I was specifically going on. And what ended up happening is this is during the time where Google pay-per-click has already at its mature state, and now social media comes into the play with Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and during this time, I decided thinking about entrepreneurship, and I launched a high-end boutique kitchen and bath design remodeling firm. Basically outsourced all the work because I've noticed a gap in the marketplace where no one was using social media to get customers. It was just a stale website, and if you were lucky, if you had that, most contractors were just very behind on that. It was very word of mouth, local-based referrals. And I decided to just go completely all in on social media. And that allowed us to build a 7-figure business, within a year and a half, which then led to many other opportunities within that sector, which then led me into opening up a marketing firm.
Nice. That's great. Well, congrats to you. I think social media is definitely an area of marketing that's often misunderstood. There's a lot of information that's floating around in the ecosystem, and some of it good, some of it not so good. So ideally today you're going to help sort of demystify a lot of that for us, give us a bit of a roadmap so that more people can see success, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Today we're definitely going to be talking specifically about Instagram, actually.
Nice. So let's have you share your screen and get right into the presentation.
All right. So it's, again, like I've said, thanks for having me. And today, social media is is an array of things, right? It could be digital marketing, could be called social media, and vice versa. But today, to not confuse things, we're going to talk about the most important one that I think would apply to your consumer and what helped me the most, because it's a very visual one and it's well-rounded. For all types of businesses, and we're seeing more and more businesses on it every day. So just going to start out with some bullet points. It has humongous awareness at this point. It's crossed 1 billion users mark, and it's going up, incrementally every year. More and more influencers, more and more businesses. Before it was just, lifestyle brands and food and fashion and fitness, but now brick and mortar businesses, local businesses are all jumping on and are seeing tremendous success. 80% of users, the majority of Instagram users, follow a business on that social network, or Facebook, which is, kind of related to the one. Also, there's a ton of other stats that people could look up. I don't want to really bore people with the stuff that they obviously could find easily on Google. These are just some things they could reference later. Is branded hashtags is something that we're seeing very, very much take off. It's what brands use to kind of control a little bit of the real estate on these platforms. How many photos get shared, just to give people an idea at the scale of content that's being produced. sort of the best times to post, although it might be specific to each and every demographic. But again, some more stats. Really don't want to bore people with those. I want to really take most of the time of going over the things that are going to bring the most value. And that is something that we should start with, which is the engagement rate. So on a social media platform, you have a profile, which most of the people have. They might not necessarily be posting on it every day. Some might, and they're not seeing successful engagement rate. What that means is just how many people like, comment, and share the content that you put out daily. Today, those numbers are dropping more and more because it's a supply and demand game. The more of there is supply on the platform, the less there's going to be of a demand. And that's kind of what's happening to Instagram. And that is why it's most important right now, while it's still not completely too late, to jump on this platform and really carve out your niche, your space, your brand equity, and to really kind of control that audience, cultivate into a tribe, a loyal community that will create referrals, create business opportunities, because that's literally what happened with us. We put engagement rate above all. And usually when engagement rate drops, it's a number, could be a number of things. Could be bad content, could be that we're not active enough, could be that Instagram's algorithm is changing, but whatever the case may be, we have to be as active on it as we possibly can be. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about.
And Tim,
Yep.
if you don't mind me interjecting really quickly, you're talking about obviously Instagram, and I think Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook made a great acquisition there, based on just the stats alone that you've just shared. But you brought up algorithm, and that's important, right? There's just important to make the distinction. Facebook used to be like this in the very, very early days. It used to be that you could on the platform post things and get really, really, really high engagement. And a lot of people were exposed to your content. And after a while, of course, monetization comes into play. You got shareholders to please, and those Facebook ad dollars need to start rolling in, right? Instagram, like you say, we're talking about organic here, right? It's not necessarily at the point where, hey, if you're not putting dollars behind your posts, forget it, you can't go anywhere, right? There's still an opportunity on the organic side.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why we really would like to stress the engagement part so much. Back to the supply and demand, statement. That is, to your point, that's what's happening. At some point, it's the other way around. At an early stage of any of these apps, it's the opposite, right? There's a lot of demand. A lot of people want to be on it, use it, play around with it, but there's just not enough content because not enough people are making it. And that's a great thing. That's happening to things like Vine right now and other platforms. LinkedIn is seeing really great organic growth at the moment. So Instagram is, a lot of people might say, is kind of dying, but I don't think so. I think that I bet on Mark Zuckerberg, and I bet that he will keep reinventing the wheel. And if not, then just copying it or buying it. But nonetheless, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Yesterday was the best time to start. Today is the second best day to start. Creating as good as an engagement as you possibly can is what the goal should be on this platform. And so, we're going to talk about the way that a person, a business owner, can run their page, can control their page without having a huge marketing team behind it, without having to have 4 or 5 people editing stuff, making videos and posting up cool quotes and things like that. There's, a couple of ways. There's really 2 ways to build a brand on Instagram. There's building a brand, using the business name, and then building a brand by a personal brand, which being someone is a face of the business and they happen to be a likable, well-spoken individual that likes to be on camera. So those are one of the 2 ways. Whichever way a business decides to go about it, the way the content is created is identical. So that's something that each person could decide on their own and see what they're most comfortable with. We all follow people that either show everything and others that don't show everything, but still do a great job. It's giving us a look behind the scenes, letting us know what their day-to-day looks like, still giving us value, still making us feel connected, which, obviously keeps us coming back for more. And this is what value over selling is. A lot of people think of Instagram as just another avenue to just lead generate. Just how can I squeeze out as many leads as possible in this new thing that everyone's talking about? And that's really the wrong way to look at it, because there's sales and there's marketing, and sales is that. But we're talking about marketing here and branding, being that specific category. And, Instagram's just not a great place for that because there's so much noise. People really, you lose a person the second you bring up a call to action really quickly and you try to ask them for something without knowing them, without building that rapport, without having a genuine connection or having to brought some value to them. So value overselling is something that we really preach. Again, I'm not going to go into each one of these bullet points. They're very self-explanatory. I assume this will be shared. And again, guys, we'll be completely open for any feedback and follow-up questions that any of your listeners might have. Would be a pleasure for us to help further. But value overselling is basically educating your client through content. It's content marketing. And a good way to think about it is if you take a plumber, for example, and I forget which marketer, couldn't quote him right now, said that, the best kind of service marketing for a service industry is how not to use that service. It's like a plumber putting out posts on how not to call him, right? Of what you need to do so you don't have to call them every 6 months. How to take care of your fixtures longer, right? That kind of content, which seems like a boring blog post, which is done through email and newsletters, now needs to come alive in the shape and form of social media, which could be a video, educating your client on, technical Mondays, where every Monday you make a post saying, doing something valuable or giving a person a hack, a life hack or something that's actually going to really bring value, and not just say, did you guys know that, 1 in every 7 toilets clog every 10 days and you should call me? That's why. That's not really giving value. Giving value, it's like, hey guys, next time, you're at the Home Depot aisle, pick up this tool right here and just keep it. And next time your toilets clog, you could just run one of these down and see if that works first before you call a plumber. And then hopefully you won't need us, right? That's value overselling. That's actually bringing someone value, where they otherwise would have had to look up this information, right? Look up this hack, if you will. So, the bullet points that you see here are the examples of that. Stats post, which is showing statistics and kind of honing in on that, but then overlaying that with a value. A list post, list of tools and resources that help the people. How to, case studies, a client that you've recently helped and what you did to help them and how that client could have prevented the issue that you've helped them with. Definition, post demystifying urban myths and things like that. Checklists, seasonal stuff, right? What you should do, should prepare, how to winterize your home, these kinds of things. They all seem very straightforward, and I feel like every business owner could come up with dozens of these. The hardest part is how to contextually communicate that on this very visual, very loud, very vibrant platform. And we recommend just to be as raw and as authentic as possible. Ideally, if the business owner is very comfortable being on camera, we highly, highly recommend doing as much video as possible. Instagram will reward you for it because it's putting video first today. It really wants to compete with YouTube's and other channels. And it'll reward you for it. You can mix that with feed posts, mix that with stories that give people behind the scenes, and it could be as raw as you'd like. In our experience for the past 2 years, we've aggressively done everything from paid advertising on Instagram, organic, contests, giveaways, affiliates. We've tried influencer marketing. Out of all those ads, content strategies that we've tried to implement, the raw content always did best, which is literally just someone turning their phone on and saying, hey guys, happy Monday. Today I'm going to talk to you about XYZ, versus a super polished video doing the same thing. And it's actually a benefit for the business owner because they don't have to invest the money into paying a creative, paying a videographer to do all these things. You have a very, very advanced piece of technology right in your hand that you can utilize. And then if you are a creative, if you happen to have a creative chromosome in yourself, then there's tons of non-paid and paid ads tools that you can use to make this content much better.
Yeah. I
Um,
like that. I've we've seen that to be true at Tim. I mean, when contractors are pulling out the phones, we work with a lot of roofers. They're up there. You pull out the phone. Hey, let me show you. When we do our estimating process, this is what we're looking for. This is why we're looking for it. And this is how you got to make sure if you're getting quotes, watch out for this because you're going to get sold this. You know what I mean? That's just like you say,
mhm.
raw versus something that's overly polished. The data does show that people resonate more with something that's genuine and authentic.
Yeah, value creates connection, and connection will turn into interest, and interest will turn into an actual lead or a referral or actual business. And um, that's one thing, right? So that's just the one side of the coin. The other side is that you're creating authority. You are now becoming the voice and the specialist in this area that you're talking about. So now you're really top of mind, because no one, your competition is, let's say, is just not doing that. So if you're doing that in a creative way where it's not, you know, over salesy or redundant or boring or very, you know, um, kind of outdated, usually most consumers will like that because we all follow, the life hack pages and the how to pages and the how to eat better pages and how to exercise. That's what this is. And it creates a loyal following, for that's evergreen for sure. Cool. So that is value overselling. And again, what you're doing is you're creating a community, and you're creating your brand while you're doing this, because after a while it will just become second nature. Another thing is obviously doing things like going live and scheduling a live session if you're capable of doing so. We've seen tremendous results because everyone knows how hard that is. That's like a live broadcast. The person watching it knows that it's not an easy thing to do, so we've seen this like unspoken of respect, level of respect that we get from people that join in the live. And they're like, if you're in the live, you're most likely either going to like it, at least ask one question, or you're just going to leave right away. And the bigger percentage is usually the people that stick around, and see value. So if you could get someone um, in that state, you can really create a lot of awareness and a lot of authority. Um, Next thing is inspire. This might not work for every business. For example, a roofing business, to your point, might not be able to utilize this to a full extent. But let's say a kitchen and bath business, like our first business was, which was very successful, only living on Instagram. I mean, we really didn't market anywhere outside of Instagram for the first year and a half, and we again crossed the seven figure mark. um that would be there's really two ways to really make a person stick around on your profile on Instagram, and that's either to educate or to entertain. And the first part was kind of more educational, where you're trying to provide a lot of value, a ton of value, so people do stick around. And we believe that this should be the majority of the content, especially for a business. When you're not a personal brand and you are a business, you should be most of the time talking about that. The other 20-30% should be this category, which is inspirational. So again, if you're a kitchen and bath showroom, you can inspire people to do their next renovation that they've been thinking about doing for a year or two, or been putting off because they haven't connected the right way with a designer, with a kitchen and bath designer. They might have went to two stores. And we know, how this is. We're the same way. You might be looking for a car to buy and might put it off for 6 months. In the process, life happens, and you might have like the guy you went to the dealership to see, and then 2 months go by before you go back. So life really plays a huge role into this. And some people do actually need a little bit of push, a little bit of inspiration, and a little bit of motivation. That's why that category is so huge today on Instagram with the Garyvees and Grant Cardones and everybody. So that applies in business as well. You're trying to tip the bucket over, and you're really now established authority. You've shown this person that I'm a credible source for your need, for your pain points. Now let me try to do other things to try to soften up our connection or your approach to the subject. And that is done by inspiring. So that's a just really subtle marketing touches, a what if post, very subtle tips, a day in the life, a rant, maybe, going on about how the tariffs have affected the importing of the kitchen cabinets and how that's impacted your bottom line, and that the hits that you had to take in order to maintain the clients. This is all what people want to know, and see in order to be able to connect with a business, especially for high ticket businesses like kitchen and bath. You can't do enough of this because you're layering on the first part that we were talking about. You're layering now entertainment, more education, and making it more accessible, by inspiring people to take that action, and making yourself seem accessible. The one thing that we've seen is lives, Q&As, and kind of the AMAs, ask me anything. Those get insane conversions, where it will be, we just had one with a furniture designer, and she has a decent following, but there's all these decorators that follow her that always ask questions. So she decided to kind of try to pull them together and do a ask me anything. And people had all these questions that, like, she didn't even know were pain points in the industry. And then other people got value out of that because most of those people had similar questions. So that was evergreen content that then got broken down as well. So yeah, I don't know. So I think that makes sense so far.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I like that last point because it's when you do things like that, you're basically almost like surveying the audience, and they're giving you feedback real time in terms of what's important to them, what are they looking for, what do they have questions about, and then you can repurpose that. So yes, you're feeding the need now, you're solving a problem, you're providing value. Now you've got all this intel that you can leverage for future blog posts, future posts, assets, things you can create, things you want to introduce in your sales process or in the conversation. So that's a nice way of doing some research.
Yeah, absolutely. And then all those pieces of content can, be broken down, just like you said. Some of them can be transcribed into audio, into a blog post, and
Mhm.
answer the market pain points. Some of them could just be an audio and could be put on your website or an anchor or podcast. Some bits and pieces could be put in as quotes on Instagram. The whole video could go on YouTube. So there's a way to break that down, and that's, definitely a topic for a whole different webinar, I think. But you know, you could never have too much content, so it's a good problem to have when you're at that point. But we're just talking about the basics here, and how much people want to scale this approach is totally within their control. What their time allows, what their content, the product that they're able to provide, the pictures, the videos, and so on and so forth. um, a good one to kind of start now building up a little bit of a community and trying to ramp up the engagement, because you don't want to try to create all this awareness and not have a foundation for people to stick to. So the first two parts are extremely important, because that content now is on your page. So you've worked hard for a month or two. You've built up some leverage via educational content. You've now starting to make yourself seem approachable, and you're showing your face, and you're doing ask me anythings. This is the part where you start to now taking this thing you're curating and bringing it into the public. This is where you're trying to 10x, 5x, whatever, again, your time allows you, exponentially grow your following. We call it share and love. And this is just trying to either collaborate with other people, be featured by other people, feature other people, but always involves usually like another party, because it creates twofold engagement. Right now, that other party is going to share that on their platform, and we're getting the engagement, the impressions from their followers. So that could be things like an interview post, right? You could take a previous client and you could interview them. If you're a B2B business, this works extremely well. If you're a kitchen and bath showroom and you sell to contractors, that's business to business. You could interview a contractor and go over the pain points that he had before working with you, how you guys addressed the process, what he liked about working with you guys. And that's a testimonial. That's a plug for them, right? So that's an interview, an introduction for them. They're getting awareness. That piece of content they were more than likely share on their platform, and brag about it and tell people about it. And again, that could turn into other smaller pieces of content. You could round up things. You could go to some of the bigger influencers maybe, and then take information from their pages and repost. Let's say you follow a big roofing influencer or a podcast and you reshare their information, sometimes, not always, that podcast will notice that you did that, will want to reciprocate the love, will show people that you posted their stuff. Now you just got, again, exposure of another party. And that you have to do over and over and over in as many directions as you possibly can, in order to try to grab as much awareness as possible, because now you have this good platform that you want people to see. You want to share it because you're confident with what you have is very valuable and, is usually shareable. So, influencer crowdsourcing approach could be paid or non-paid. In my case, it was barter. We worked with some interior designers that had huge followings, and we sold them kitchen cabinets borderline at cost. But because we were able to tap into their 80, 50, 40, 100,000 follower accounts, we grew by 10, 2, 3,000 people. Out of all of those, if we even get one to convert, that paid for itself. So it is a numbers game for sure. Can never have enough content, can never have enough people endorsing your content, and vice versa.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of the we call the notion of borrowed influence, right? So, like you say, other established players in your market where there's some synergies. If you look at like a Venn diagram, in your case, it was the designer who was working direct with consumer, potentially some contractors. I mean, all potential customers for you. There's overlaps there, so just great synergies. Makes sense to partner. So definitely, should get people's minds working here. Think about who you can partner or collaborate with, and then more specifically, aim for people that already have some kind of a foothold on the market, and see how you can provide value to them. And this is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people might argue. I get this a lot. Is, well, Tim, you're in, North Jersey, you're waterfront, you're looking at Manhattan, it's easy for you to collaborate with people. There's just an abundance of content and people. What if I'm in, dot 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 Ohio, and there's nobody that I can even collaborate with? You can do the same approach by doing what Garyvee actually likes to say is becoming the mayor of your town. And now, instead of collaborating with people in your niche, you go out to the local bakery and that you go to and grew up going to, the supermarket, the florist, the auto body guy, and you do the same thing. And it's still B2B. And that person is more than happy to do it. And they're like, wow, oh yeah, absolutely, I'd love to promote your stuff. I didn't even know you did this. And you're doing a
Right.
feature on our town because this is where you're from and you're supporting the community. And, you know, your mind, this is really to get everyone's mind going, because it's learning how to apply it. It's not so much as what to apply it to, because what to
Right.
apply it to usually comes naturally and is very specific to each, demographic, geographic location, what type of business, where are you at in the stage of your business. But how to apply it, I think, is very important, because that's the tactics, and that's what you do day to day in order, that's the oil that keeps the machine going. So that's the share and love portion. And then lastly is, I try to, depending on the kind of business this is, the more obviously conservative your business is, the less you would do of this. But like we had a kitchen and bath showroom. I guess it's not here nor there. It's pretty kind of boring. It's just cabinets, but then it could be fun because like kids splash in sinks and you could put your baby in the kitchen sink, right? So we would tap into all those things, and then that would be the room that we would leave for the entertainment part. And entertainment works really well because it just kind of breaks the ice. You might get someone to engage the first time just on humor, because that's the way they prefer their ice to be broken, not to be educated on the subject. I know a lot of times that, like very successful salespeople I've dealt with in really high pressure, high ticket situations when we were doing kitchen and bath sales on multi-unit projects, and, multi-hundred, $1,000 orders are flowing around. The guy that could say the joke usually broke the ice immediately, and then it was all good after that. That's kind of like what this is. It's like, how can you break the ice without being corny, without being offensive? Obviously, you have to be very mindful of what kind of humor it is. It should be kind of the type that pleases all. And that could be in the form of a cartoon post. We worked with a company, a personal brand. We created an animated cartoon for him because he didn't want to show his face. That was pretty cool. And then we just like animated it. and then it became a thing. He had like a cartoon series where he educated people. Parodies, which is now kind of like shifting into memes, really. And that's basically taking a meme that's gone viral, and there's nothing wrong with resharing it. It could take a few seconds in Photoshop or Paint or any basic app that you'd like. All you have to do is change the text to your industry, right? And it's really funny. And usually memes are universal. If you've noticed that, most people probably are aware of it at this point. You see the same meme floating around, but the words will be different and like will be applied to different things. So highly recommend that. That's a very easy hack to do two things. One, to kind of bandwagon a viral post that's already happening. So you're increasing your chances of it being shared and kind of, continue on that trajectory. And you're obviously creating humor, right? And entertainment on your page, which is evergreen. So it's a cool way to do it. So that's pretty much the tactics, right? Just to how to even run your page, right? Now that's what we would call inbound marketing. It's things you do, put your brand in a position, educate, so people come to you instead of you going out to them. And this is the part where we feel like you really can get a little salesy and bring a little bit more of a call to action when you feel like you have an audience that you feel comfortable with. And this could be done by any of the engagement tools that Instagram gives you in their stories. And we highly recommend to keep this to stories only in the beginning. That's where we're seeing the most success with these types of posts. And that would be a question. Ask me anything, or I want to ask you guys something. What pain points are you guys having in blah, blah, blah industry? Or, are you selling your home today? If you're a realtor, what have you, right? It'd be specific to you. Answering, right? That's ask me anything. So you would be posting the answers, which would bring value to others. But you're creating interaction, and now it turns into direct messages most of the time. And now you can actually create an off-screen kind of conversation, which then sales takes over. Marketing stops at that point, and then sales takes over. This is now your sales process. Do you want to pitch them something? Do you want to just kind of grab their email and put them into an email campaign? That is already, what people decide to do with that lead is totally up to them. I feel like marketing stops when you get the client, and then sales takes over until sales says, hey, this client didn't convert, we need to retarget. Then marketing kicks in again. But again, your idea, the goal is to try to now the audience that you've spent a lot of time educating, creating a connection with, making yourself seem approachable, and networking with other professionals. Now you're really trying to engage with every single follower that hits your page. For the first year of our page, I think all the way up to 6,000 followers, we sent a direct message to every single person that commented and liked and forwarded and shared all our content. And that grew us by 20, by 30, by 40 a day, because people would be like, oh my God, they just sent me a DM. That's so nice. And, nice people still exist, what have you, right? It spirals out of control. But you really just now want to create, after you've now built this home, you want to invite people into it. And you really want to try to get them to stay. And this is all about engagement. The more time you have, the more of these you could do. And then you can just, in your spare time, do like guerrilla tactics. You can search a hashtag, which is something that we're going to get into very last, and then go on the offense even further. It's something that we're going to cover shortly. But engagement is very important, because if you spend all this work creating content, educating your client base, and really trying to communicate with them, but you forget to ask and you forget to create a call to action, you're still risking a lot, and might be leaving a lot on the table, and a lot of your efforts might go unnoticed because of that. And I am all about brand over sales, but it's 51-49, not 70-30. So brand should be just a step up. Means you always got to have the best content. You always got to try to educate. You always got to try to bring value, but do not forget about trying to close that lead that you've worked so hard to get, or at the least get their information and convert them into a traffic you own, because Instagram is traffic you do not own. You're renting there. And those followers can unsubscribe and then you lost them, right? Instagram could change the algorithm where it, I don't know, denies people from opening new accounts or what have you. You don't own that traffic. So the goal is for any business is to, in my opinion, is to own that traffic. So try to grab the contact information however you can in exchange for anything that you possibly could give them. A lot of times when the content is very good, all you'd have to do is put very small products in place to try to get conversion rates up. So if you're a roofer, and you've been going on and on and on about content and how to save people money, right before the bad season starts, you can send out a some sort of an offer, and that's the call to action, a hard call to action. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. At this point, your audience is almost expecting it, because you didn't do that in the beginning. It's a lot more organic, it's a lot more natural, and the ice has been broken. So that's the engagement part. While we're on the engagement subject, the hashtags while you're doing all this is very important. This is what you're going to use to look up people, locations, brands, services, products. And it's basically, how you would use Google search. Instagram works the same way. If you wanted to interact with people that are into roofing, you'd literally put in the hashtag, New York City roofing and see what comes up. It might be a podcast that's talking about roofing that's using a hashtag. It might be a guy that just did his roof. It might be a competitor roofing company. It might be a lumber yard selling roofing materials. So you ideally want to, the last part that we just spoke about, interact with them by using these tools to get them. So hashtags is kind of like a way to search people. And another small hack before we get into the last part, which I really like, is the ALT text. This is if you're want to get a little bit geeky when you are making Instagram posts. This is a very recent update that Instagram is really promoting, is when you're making a post on Instagram and for some reason Instagram cannot load that picture, there will be a text that is written instead of that picture. And that will be the ALT text. In this PDF, it'll show you, kind of do that, and it explains of what this does. But basically, it allows Instagram to read your post if the picture is not available or is not the best quality, because Instagram has artificial intelligence technologies which now, scan your picture. That is why engagement is down, because of contextualism. So if you post a picture of a kitchen cabinet, but you put the hashtag love, Kardashians and Bravo, and Google scans it and it sees none of those things, it's going to put you down and it's going to suppress you. Versus if you put, it's a picture of a faucet or kitchen cabinet, and in the description, it says something about a kitchen cabinet, the hashtags are relevant to kitchen cabinet, and you add this extra layer on top, that's just kind of a great, well-rounded approach to someone who really wants to take things to the next level, because Instagram is going to continue to implement artificial intelligence. And we feel like soon, there already talks about this, where they're going to read, it's going to have features eventually where it's going to read the posts back to us. So right now, sound being so forward, you could be driving and listening to a podcast instead of watching a YouTube vlog. That's why podcasting became big. Voice search in Google is humongous. So people are searching voice more than texting. So Instagram and Facebooks are like, why are we different? We need people's eyes in order to consume our content. What if we try to read it? So this is going to be used then more than ever, but now it's still being used just to help you rank. So good old search engine optimization. If people don't know what that is, obviously it could be Google, very straightforward tactic. And this will explain what to write there. Again, it'll be things like, relevant to the caption, keywords, what the picture is about. So someone within one to two sentences can really understand what that picture was meant to represent. The last part is my favorite. Not sure how we're doing on time.
We're good, Tim. You're good.
We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Last part is my favorite, because this is literally how I built my business. And Garyvee branded this. He created this. He calls it the $80 strategy. The reason why it's called the $80 strategy is because you should be leaving your 2 cents on 9 top posts under 10 hashtags that are relevant to your industry, which equals to $1.80 if you multiply it and add it up. So let me explain. In your profile, you have the explore section, which is the feeds that are the most popular. So it's, you have the part where you could just keep on scrolling and there's just all kinds of different information. All you'd have to do is put in a hashtag in the search bar, and under a business relevant category. So if you're a roofer, you might put, I don't know, contractors that you're trying to go after because you want to sell them your services. You would put NYC contractors. The top posts that come up, the 9 posts, are the most trending. So they're the most popular. Those people have either great engagement, great awareness, big followings, and they're doing something right because Instagram is rewarding them by giving them the prime space, which is the cover of a newspaper or magazine, if you will. Those 9 posts, you want to go into each and every single one and leave your 2 cents. So write something like, wow, that's an amazing job you guys just did on the Hamptons project. Love the copper flashing detail. We use the same stuff on our projects. That's it. You're not trying to sell anything. You're not trying to promote anything. You're not leaving a business card at the local lumberyard store in someone's window. It's none of those tactics. You're trying to add value, give them a compliment, or just say, or comment on something that maybe they had a question in their post. Hey, does anyone know what kind of material we should be using in our next project? And if you generally know and can add value, you can write that. So as much as you can, because anything more than 4 words will let Instagram know you're a valuable piece of content and will help you create the connection between this account. So doing that for 10 hashtags daily on 9 top posts, and that's only just, the $1.80, right? So will only take about maybe 25, 30 minutes of your life once you get into it, is what we did to grow our business. The second that we jumped on Instagram, we only had one option, is to go organic, because we didn't have a budget to do paid advertisement. So we couldn't pay to play. We had to try to create awareness as much as we could. And just like we outlined in this presentation, we followed the same exact steps. We started with education. Every trade show, every meeting I had, everything that I've learned about the industry, I shared with the audience, which is usually something that people in this industry, especially in the construction industry, shy away from, because they feel like, well, that's my know-how. That's what, that's my trade secrets. And, at this moment, this took care of the trade secrets. All the trade secrets are out there on some blog post and some YouTube video. So more than likely, you're not sharing something revolutionary. Otherwise, you'd probably be patenting that already. So the more you could share and the more valuable it is, that's what we did. We started with that. We got some influencers on board in the shape of designers, bartered with them, created more awareness, started going live. But this is where business development actually took on a whole new form. Because what we did in those first 4 stages were just organic, right? That was just people coming to our pages, slowly cultivating those relationships. They would leave comments. We would follow back. We would follow them until we felt like it was appropriate to say, hey, by the way, would love to quote this project that I see you just posted, very subtly after some time. This is different. This is outbound. This is cold email, if you will, but in a less colder way, because you already have instant image out there that this person with one click of a button can look into. So when you leave that comment on someone's page, it has a ton of value because others are seeing it that are seeing that post. You've added value to this account, so they might follow you back. Obviously, you might lead into a business lead, might lead into a conversation, but it's analytics. The more of those you do, the more you're going to see to what type of things people respond better, what really engages people, because we're in different mindsets. When we're on social media platforms, the way we think when we watch TV is differently the way we think when we are on Instagram, is differently the way we are when we're writing an email. So our mindset and our state is a little bit different. So that's really good analytics to look back on the more of that you do. And, when Garyvee recommended only to do $1.80, we did about $10 a day. And I kid you not, it turned into probably 3 leads on average per day of qualified leads reaching out to us, wanting and asking to do business with us, because all we did was poke the bear, and then they landed on our page and we're like, whoa, look at all this great content these guys have. These guys are definitely up to something. They're knowledgeable. We want to be involved with this type of business. We want to be associated with this type of business. And it was just natural. All of the cold calling, the retargeting, the squeezing, the trying to get them into a funnel, which all works for sure, right? But this is a great organic way, a free way to be able to grow your following, grow engagement, and business develop in a very one-on-one environment. So this, I can't stress enough, because any new business or startup that I've been a part of that is a service or a product business, this has been the same strategy that we've used over and over. I've worked with an apparel brand that sold pretty cool t-shirts, and we've did nothing but Instagram marketing, organic and influencer. And, they're doing extremely well just doing that. So this is definitely the thing that I would want to leave people with is, it's twofold. You have to get the content right, but if the content is good and you're not taking the actions to get it out there, then it's not worth it. And vice versa. If you're just doing the actions of trying to biz dev and get people to close, but there's no content to back that up, also wouldn't work. So you really want to make sure that you're bringing both up equally, and ideally the first one being the content first if you're very, very raw, because you'd want people to try to stick around. And if you don't have enough content on your page, you're risking them just kind of bouncing back and not sticking around. So before you go really, really on the offense, highly recommend to create a solid platform and to really understand, how your page is going to look over the long term, so you can have a consistent brand image and message and a call to action in mind that just is then rinse and repeat.
Nice.
Yes,
well,
I
Tim,
think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's awesome insight. I love this play, the $1.80 play. It's cool to see that you said you're investing about $10 a day. So
Yep.
that's I'm curious how much time that was, but
it was about 4 hours, I would say. But
okay.
We then ran a test after being already successful and having a brand image and a big list of clients. We tried a cold email campaign from people that have never heard of us. We're talking 10x worse conversions, click-throughs,
Nice.
open rates, you name it. Just wait.
Name it.
The social media just won by a
Cool.
landslide. Yeah.
Nice. Well, this is cool. I mean, I think you've laid out a nice kind of foundation for people. There's a lot of nice, I think, insight into the types of posts, and that's where a lot of people struggle. This is, what am I going to write? What am I going to say? I mean, there's tons of ideas in this presentation. For somebody who has watched this and they're sitting there scratching their head, maybe it's, I don't know, let's use the example, 2 guys in a truck, they're limited on time, scratching their head here saying, okay, this sounds cool, we want to do it, sounds like it works, I believe it, but I'm just overwhelmed because it sounds like it's a lot of work, a lot of time. What do you tell someone?
I would, one, try to audit your existing schedule and what you're spending your time on in the category department of marketing and sales, right? And if you're spending, anytime cold calling right now or anything like that, I would first try to see if you could take some time out of that. That would be my first step. 2 is to see if anyone in the office, if you're not one-man show, that has a little bit of extra time that they're maybe left with doing something like, I don't know, sweeping. And instead of sweeping, you can actually get them to maybe for 30 minutes or 40 minutes to do some of these things. And that's just kind of the day-to-day. Content creation is different and comes different for everyone. Not everyone is comfortable with having people take pictures of them or pictures of what they have going on. So it can be fabricated by that same person. You could go onto stock free image websites and buy images that you for a couple of dollars that you could own, layer text over them, and then you could create content out of that. It could be that simple. Again, resharing content is a great way to build pages. If you really want to look at it at the core, some of the biggest influencer meme comedy pages don't have original content. They're resharing other people's stuff, and they kind of become a curator, right? It's like a radio station. Pandora doesn't have a a production company. They're just curating the best artists, and that's where people go. And that's kind of what you want to do. So even if, let's say, you don't have time to create content, just use the one that's already available to you. Go to your vendors, ask them for pictures, ask them for videos, and they'll be more than happy to share that with you. And then you layer that with your own copy and your own, stuff. And if you don't have time for that, there's very, very, very cheap tools and platforms like Upwork.com, or Fiverr with 2 R's, Fiverr.com, where you could go and you could get a virtual assistant that is protected by this platform. So you don't have to worry about them running away with your money or whatnot. And these people could literally do this for you. They could automate this entire process for you. And using this strategy, which you could forward to them. And most of these people that do this every day will probably be able to come back to you with some ideas of their own. And then together, you guys will then start grinding down, the image that you're working on. But for 50, 100, 150 to $200 a month invested in this, right? And this is like, at most, you can see amazing results. Again, especially if you're in high ticket sales, like a service industry, roofers, contractors, plumbers, kitchen, cabinet dealers, installers, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of money is a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. It's the price of one lead, more or less, right? So,
Exactly.
Well, Tim, this has been a great presentation. Appreciate you taking the time to put that together. If somebody wants to chat, have a conversation, whatever it is, what's your social media handle or your website URL where you can send people?
Absolutely. Best way to reach us is at Roman Group Media on Instagram. And if you want to check out our website, it's romangroupmedia.com.